This week, we're continuing our Process Party series with the Project Kickoff.
We're taking you through everything we do once we've got a signed contract and before the creative process begins.
This phase is all about preparing clients for the design magic while avoiding future problems.
Because don't we all want fewer problems?
Let's go! Hi, I'm Rebecca of Studio Plum.
And I'm Shaun of Renstead Interiors. We're interior designers
Turned internet friends.
turned real life friends.
Welcome to the Hot Young Designers Club podcast.
We're not that hot.
Or that young.
Every week, we'll be spilling the tea on how a new generation of interior designers can run their businesses.
Welcome to the club. Hey, Shaun.
What's up, Rebecca?
What's up? Let's see. Beautiful sunsets we're having in these fall evenings.
Oh my gosh, we had like a gorgeous pastel-y amazingness one, which I lovingly refer to as a Katy Perry fart sunset.
Oh, okay. That's really bringing me some visuals.
It's very like
Candy color.
Teenage Dream Candy,
Yeah.
a la like her album cover. It's very that.
Totally.
That's
It's very
so whenever I see those, that's what I
It's
call
very
them.
my 6-year-old daughter.
Have you seen this beautiful sunset?
We call it cotton candy sunsets.
Well, there you go. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Twinsies.
So shall we do some fizzles and sizzles?
Little fizzy sizzies. You want me to kick it off? You want to kick it off?
You can kick it off.
All right. Okay. I mean, there's a lot going on right now. I think the
Where
fizzle.
to start?
Where to begin? I have such a long list. So I will just like generally share how I just feel a little bit disillusioned lately when I'm talking to clients. Almost all of them are construction clients. It's just like every inquiry, I think we've talked about this, you and I together, just has a really inaccurate picture of what construction's going to cost and how long it's going to take. And it's forcing me to make a lot of changes to my website, to some of my introductory client materials. It's just getting annoying. Like I'm kind of getting over the client education of this. So I'm not like in
Do you think
solve mode
it's just
yet.
like amateur hour with everyone coming out of the wings wanting to work on their homes?
I think that's part of it. And then I also think that for people who haven't done projects, they're not getting realistic numbers from television or the internet. Like if you're going on websites like Home Advisor and these places, like they don't apply to the greater LA and Orange County market. None of those numbers are realistic to hear. It'd be like asking them those numbers to be realistic to Manhattan and San Francisco. They don't cross over. The average number you're seeing online when you do your basic level research is not going to apply to our area.
Right.
And
you would think anyone in California, especially Southern California, would know that most national averages don't apply to us.
Right. Like you wouldn't expect whatever job that you had, if you were applying for the same exact job at a national company in Irving, Texas, like a really like semi-rural outside of a metro area type of community, the pay scale is obviously going to be a lot lower than moving to a large metropolitan city environment. Like that's just, and you should assume the same thing for construction. So
Right.
we've been talking about this a lot offline, off air, of how do I educate with some additional qualifying questions in my intake forms, in my investment guide, maybe some additional, like I started drafting some blog posts that I can talk about this stuff and give some numbers to
And
share with it.
reference.
Yeah, I just don't want, I really think that, I mean, you get ads on Facebook that are like, build a guest house for 40 grand. And it's like, no, absolutely not. Absolutely not. Unless you already had a structure existing. Like,
Well, maybe one of those like prefab.
but even that's got to be so, I mean, that's where I say maybe the structure itself, but not the permits and the utilities and all of the foundation or whatever. Like, there's still a
Right.
lot that they don't. It's kind of like when you see the advertised price for something and then they have all the stuff that gets added in, and then suddenly you realize, like, holy moly, it's
Like the price like on a car advertisement, and then you look like doesn't include or includes manual manual
manual
transmission,
transmission,
manual
no
windows,
AM
no
radio
power
only,
steering,
no cameras, no safety, one
no
airbag,
brakes.
one airbag. You have to manually deploy it by pressing a button. And it's, oh, and also assumes that you have a huge FICO score
Yeah, and
and a
it's the ugliest
gigantic down
color that
payment.
they have. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
It's
It's
like
that
bright
idea of
yellow.
you only have to advertise one on the lot that's that low price, and the rest can all be higher than that, and that's construction.
Right. Well, it's also though, so like our debate, what I don't want to get too deep into this. I almost feel like this could be a whole episode, but
God.
well, you want to get clients that are kind of on the fence or like could be qualified. You still want them to talk to you and, you know, be good leads without scaring them away.
Yeah, I mean, I do have clients where I talk to them, and it has happened where they reach out much later again when they're like, now we're ready. Now we've prepared it. Now we refinanced. Now we pulled extra money together and we're ready now.
Right. Yeah. Or,
So,
but you
yeah,
don't
I
want
don't
someone
want to
who's
scare
like, I want
people.
a $10,000 high luxury kitchen remodel and that's all I want to spend. Like,
That's not going to happen.
no.
I think that's where I want to start setting. I don't want to scare people off, which is where I think our discussion was good to start in our area. And this might be weird for some of our listeners who are out of here, but like $100 a square foot is really basic level construction. I mean, we're talking like bare bones, builder grade, bargain basement. Like I found a vanity half off because it was somewhat damaged. Like
Oh,
really,
no.
really, like, to me, that brings you in like a flipper budget, a everything might not necessarily be cohesive together type of area, DIY area. Like you're going to have to pick and choose things at that lower entry level price. And then we talked about how it goes up like $200 a square foot is going to help you get some upgrades that you want, and you're going to have to still make some choices. $300 a square foot, you're getting something a little more elevated, and then $400 plus a square foot. I mean, in greater Los Angeles, that's not weird. We have multimillionaires who are buying, reclaimed Italian marble from some, house in the hills in Italy and importing it here, or custom quarrying marble. Like that's a reality of where I live. So when
Right. And
people,
it's affecting the prices.
yeah, so don't show me rooms with $10,000 window treatments and then say you know, I have $300 for window treatments. And people just don't know that that's not very much money. They just can't understand. I don't know. Anyway, that's a fizzle to be like, oh my God, a $500 light fixture. What? Like, okay, girl, like,
That's
that's
called a
nothing.
good price. Yeah.
That's a deal, like, anyway. So we can talk more about that. But it's been a lot of conversations lately. a lot of inquiries. And so going back to my boundaries, I want to make sure that I'm putting more information out there for people to read and digest first, because it's not just about my design work, it's just about them knowing what's reasonable, to complete. And I will balance that really long-winded fizzle with my sizzle, which is a client project I've been working on since the beginning of the year. They don't really, not everyone's into social media evenly, but she has been like sharing pictures on her Instagram with friends and family. And she just recently, I think because now there's like actually something to show, because we're at that phase where stuff is like fully in, that she started tagging, my business Instagram on it, which is like, that's a good feeling. Like, okay, you obviously
Yeah.
like it if you're willing to tell people you worked with a designer and you're putting the name on it. And I'm really happy with the project. So I'm not resharing those because I want them to maintain their privacy, but it matters to me that in the group of friends and family that she's posting to, that they know. And I did, a few people who I know follow her then followed over to me afterwards. So I'm like, okay, this is why we do word of mouth. This is why it works so well.
Right.
And I don't know, there's nothing that forces a client to do that. So when they do, it makes me really excited.
Yeah, and that means they're happy and excited. So
Yeah,
that's awesome.
it was some good energy to kind of wrap into that.
Um, well, okay, so fizzle. I don't want to like bring the whole episode down, but my dad had a stroke in my house on Saturday morning, which
Oh my God.
just he's totally fine, but it was pretty scary. But he was
Yeah.
luckily he was with our handyman and my husband was right there basically. So they got him to the hospital really quick, got the clot blocking medicine, whatever it is, and they cleared it. So he's hopefully coming home today. And he says he's got all of his movement and he's totally fine. He says he doesn't even need to like take a nap. So
Oh
I
my God.
we'll see when he's actually out of that environment. But
Right, right, right,
um
right. Like, I'm fine. Let me go home. It's totally good. And then he's like, thank God I'm out of there. And
yeah. I mean, they're obviously he'll have to make some lifestyle changes, but the good news is like they've pinpointed the clot and it's gone. So
thank goodness.
yeah. So if you are with anyone who looks like they're having stroke symptoms, please don't hesitate. Call 911 because it can mean everything.
Yeah, the faster response, the better.
That's what
And
all the doctors told him that.
Jesus, thank God he couldn't ignore it. Or he wasn't
Yeah,
just
well,
at home by himself and no one noticed it. And he's just like, I'm
exactly.
fine. And
Well, he fell down, like his leg like gave out. So, but yeah, I mean, if my mom was upstairs and she couldn't hear him, like who knows? Like,
oh my God. Makes me not want to
um,
walk around with headphones in, like,
I know.
because you just want to know what's happening. Like, y'all right? You okay? Especially parents now. For I think both of us, we've had a year of tests. We were
Jeez.
talking. We were talking about this, so it's news to our listeners. And Rebecca and I were connecting like kind of real time as it was happening. But it's the year of dads and health scares,
Yeah.
among so many other things. But I'm glad that he's recovering and that he was able to get treatment quickly. And then the next couple months, I'm sure there'll be more and more data and information and things to follow up on for him.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, best case scenario to a bad situation, but um yeah. So that was fizzle of the week for sure.
Yeah, that's the big one.
And sizzle, I'm just gonna keep it light. I got I got the new iPhone 12 Pro
Upgrade.
Upgrade. She's shiny and bright. So I'm not going to give a full review on this because I haven't completely played with it, but the 12 Pro comes with LiDAR technology, which is like 3D radar kind of.
Right.
So I played with it a little bit, like super quickly, but basically, there's apps that you can scan a room and it completely maps the room in 3D and will export to CAD.
I mean, I want to know more about that when it's available because I feel like when you know more, I'm
Yeah,
ready to
I'll
hear
report
more
back.
about it. It's
Like, I don't know if
definitely
it's ever going to be like real, like measurements with the.
useful.
No, well, I just think it'll be like a good like first capture of a space and then go back and double check everything with a tape measure. But I
Okay.
scanned a room in 10 seconds. And if it really is going to give me a floor plan out of that,
Yeah.
especially when there's weird bumps and nooks and crannies and
Oh, I'm here for it. And
so
I think that's a cool visual to have things to refer back to for stuff like that. It's a beautiful phone. I always give it to Apple. They make gorgeous, gorgeous products. So it's one of those things where it's so beautiful you have to put it in a case because I can't. It's basically having a laptop. They're so expensive. But their new blue color is really freaking sexy.
I was really on the fence. I went with the gold, but
I would probably pick the gold because it already coordinates with all the other things that I have, which is
it matches your
important.
desk.
It's gonna match everything. Um, so
But I'll
I'm here
report
for
back
it.
on the technology because I think it could be really helpful for our businesses.
Yeah, I like that angle for
Hashtag
it.
write off. Hashtag write off.
I, I love that journey for you.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Well, maybe we should just kick off this kickoff. We're back
Kick off the
for
kickoff.
process parties back.
Pew 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 pew.
It's been a minute.
um we're just exploring, like, as we go through steps in the process, sometimes we realize that there's things that might seem quick and easy to us, but maybe we really need to like flesh out everything that has made it so easy for us to navigate or makes our lives easier to navigate. And one of them is just the great, you signed a contract and you have a client, so now what? And what happens in those initial steps
Right.
before the magic of design takes over? There's kind of a lot involved there.
Yeah, between documents and meetings to be scheduled, vendors
So
to
many
line up.
meetings.
So
So much of that.
let's do it.
Okay, so you and I are both now using Dubsado. Clients sign their contracts, pay their initial retainer invoice through their proposal. It's all together. You know, Bob's your uncle. It's done, and
Signed,
then the
sealed,
project
delivered. I'm
begins.
yours. Yeah.
Right. And then, do you have anything like what happens there for you? Like right after that, okay, great, we're gonna get started.
So I think I mentioned this in one of the last few weeks, but I took Jacob Medina's advice. If you haven't listened to episode 25, 26,
Mm,
I believe he's 26.
I mean, 2020 is all blurring together. So,
He had some really great tips about this, and I took his advice. So I send out a style survey that includes, so I do this through Dubsado, it's a questionnaire. I customize it to that particular client with some like some quick style photos that I ask, like, what do you like about this room? What don't you like about this room? Maybe there's two different options. But the
but they're
nice thing,
similar to the stuff they've talked about doing with you.
or dissimilar. Sometimes I'll try to
Okay.
put a little trick one in there to be like, I want to get them to talk about something specific. Like
Okay.
maybe I'll go like super bold or something I wouldn't probably do, but I want them to tell me they don't like that color or that chair is ugly or whatever. I don't show them ugly stuff, but I might go extreme with it, if that makes sense.
Okay. I I like the idea of sort of like a, what do you love about this? What do you hate about this? What, like, are we in the right zone? Because every client has a different vocabulary and different taste level, and you're
Right.
trying to like bring
Well,
yourselves
it
to the
gives
same
them a
ground.
visual to talk about. So when you ask to describe your style, I do that in my first questionnaire. But
Yeah,
yeah, we've talked about this before. Like modern and traditional are such like huge categories that they
oh
mean
my
something
god, yeah,
different to everybody.
totally. Yeah, I like this sort of equalizer, especially before you're really far into a project, of what's important to you, what's not. Let's get on the same page before you've started spending a lot on billable hours.
And most importantly, it gets, if their clients are a couple, it gets them on the same page.
Yeah, I would like to spend as little time being a design therapist as possible and getting to like the real work that I do versus getting them to agree. And I have a I have a questionnaire. It's not a style questionnaire, but it is a, I just call it a design questionnaire. It doesn't have those elements. I've been using this for a while now, and I keep adding more and more to it throughout each project. Kind of afterwards, I assess like, I would have liked to have known that up front. I would have liked to have known that. And now it's built in Dubsado, so I can easily just keep upping that. But that's one of the things that goes out after the project. If I don't already have links to Pinterest boards or house boards or whatever, it lets them file upload or put links.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to get that stuff up front. And I just want to make sure that I've collected everything. But mine also contains like functional stuff that I want them to like immortalize in the document of, are there materials and finishes you like literally can't stand and those are a
Right.
no-go no matter what I do? Now's the time to tell me, like, we hate brass, and then I'll be like, okay, well then our contract is over, we have to move on.
Nice knowing you.
It was so great talking with you these last couple weeks, but I'm gonna refund your deposit because I can't do a house without brass. But that's not actually true, it's just mostly true. But I want to know that stuff, or colors they hate. If they're like, we absolutely cannot stand green, it's like, okay, well, it's good for me to know. But I also recognize that that's sometimes a test for me, as like, tell me what you don't like. So there is follow up to those questions of, this is great, you
Right.
shared it, but this isn't McDonald's. Like, I don't just punch in an order form based off this questionnaire and create your design. So
I would love that.
yeah, I wish I could just beep boop beep boop beep boop, bam, design pops out.
Output.
Yeah, order 26, your room is ready.
That would be amazing.
But there's, I
Well,
mean, that's sort of like that's an e-design sort of model almost, where it's like, okay, we're not going to do a lot of critical thinking here because you're not paying for all of that. You're paying for one comprehensive vision that's really streamlined. With this is like full service. I want to know, how do you entertain? What's the average age of people you entertain?
yeah, all that's in that guide or that questionnaire as well.
Right.
And I like when I get answers from both of the partners because I can hear, like, I can kind of get a read on who each person is and like how much they care about things, how much involvement they may have,
Right.
how they kind of see the rooms is super interesting to me sometimes. Like they'll see a tile installation as busy where I would never think that because it's all one color. I don't know.
Right. And it just helps you know, like, okay, how am I going to approach this? How do I talk about it helps me inform the presentation process further down the road too, of like,
Mm-hmm.
I remember you said XYZ, and because of that, I pulled these because I found that in the sales process, because that's what we are, the more information we have to inform the design process, the better I can present that to, this is where this came from. I didn't just pull this out of
Right.
like, this is the design I want to do. I'm creating this based off of the data you gave me. And now
And you
this
kind
is
of
what
get
it
an
looks like.
idea if like, because there's sometimes I've had clients like this that maybe you, I'm sure, have, where one of the parties is kind of contrary, and they're like, not in a bad way necessarily, but you can tell they're always going to be kind of playing this devil's
Naysayer.
advocate, or
Yeah, yeah,
like,
yeah.
what about, like, you showed me something green. Well, what if we do it in blue? I'm like, but back to what you were saying. Okay, but you sent me a bunch of inspiration photos and it was a lot of greens and natural colors. So
Right.
I'm just kind of going back to that vibe we talked about. Okay, you're right. You're right.
Yeah. And that happens so many times during the design process where I'm like, yeah, but we really pulled this from, you love the look of chrome, but you don't love the function of chrome because it's always got water spots and smudge marks, and you really wanted to avoid a high polished surface. And then they're like, yeah, you're right. You're right. Like, I don't like that. It's
And we just got
true.
to narrow it down. Like, I love every color in the universe, but I can't have them all in my one room. So
Right.
we got to make choices.
Yeah. So questions about style, like comfort.
You've,
I include I don't, have we talked about this before? The unicorn zone? I feel like we have, right?
I don't know if we have on the pod.
I've talked about, I know I've talked about this online on Instagram, where I talk about the balance between low cost, good quality, and fast turnaround. So it's like
Mm-hmm.
money, time, and quality, basically. And that the overlap of all three doesn't exist. Like, there isn't a magical unicorn of low cost, good quality, and you can get it quickly. And I mind that process is in my questionnaire of like, you can only pick two priorities. So let's have you pick now what they are. And you tell me what the two top ones are, because you're not going to get all three. And I ask them, pick two.
Right.
And most clients pick, they want a balance between quality and cost, but most of my clients aren't in a huge rush. I do, however, have clients who are like, no, we need to move this quickly because there's a timeline. We're moving in, or it's a rental. Like, I'm working with a client who's doing an Airbnb right now. So for them, fast turnaround is important because they've got to go, they want to get it rented as quick as possible. It's an investment property. So to them, fast turnaround was at the top of their pick because
Yeah.
they don't have the time to wait. They can't let this design come together over the course of 6 months.
Time is money. Yeah.
For them it is. Now, most of my other clients are like, we want to get it right. We're bringing you on because we want to get it right. And if it means we wait 4 to 6 weeks for the tile we really want, okay, let's consider it.
Yes. Yeah, I like the unicorn zone. Have you also heard of like the you can have two, health, love, or money? That's depressing.
Oh, let's not play that game right now. Ooh. I mean, I guess I'll be poor.
I don't want any of them to
I
be
don't want to
not
be poor
there. I don't want to
financially, but if it
pick.
means I don't have health and love, what's the point? Like,
It's true.
ugh.
Maybe it's like you can only excel at two at one given time. I think that's
Yeah,
it.
like you can only have
Like you can
abundance in two
focus.
areas. Yeah. But I have other functional stuff in that questionnaire. Like, okay, do you like finishes that age or patina? Do you like finishes that are like man-made, or do you want them to look more perfect and machine-made? And I compare like a Zellige tile with like a
Mm,
standard kind of perfect machine-made tile, because I really want people to see the contrast between these things. And that helps so much of my process.
totally. Yeah. Because if somebody is not going to like things getting patina, they're not going to like cement tile or
Yeah.
aged brass. Hey, Shaun, Have you signed up for the Hot Young Designers Club newsletter?
Oh, no.
Really? Is this you not wanting to clutter your inbox with a lot of excess junk?
No, no. Let me do it. Where do I need to go?
You need to go to hotyoungdesignersclub.com, scroll down until you get to the subscribe button. You just pop in your email address and your name.
All right, I'm doing it right now. Is this going to be a bunch of spam?
It's not. It's actually not going to be anything until we actually get around to sending something. But we have big plans and we want to be able to send surveys to get feedback from our audience and maybe once in a while a special surprise or a recap.
All right, I'm on it.
Thank you. Back to the show.
I don't have a different welcome kit. I just have a single investment guide that I send at the initial stages before their consult.
I'll talk about it. I don't have it ready, but I'm
What
working on
you
it.
want to do.
Yeah.
Okay.
So from there, I also send, well, I haven't done it yet. I want to send a welcome kit, which is like a PDF kind of a little bit like guide to how it's all going to work. I'm still working on mine, but it's going to include like a little bit more of like the team if there was one, like a reminder of things like billing, like things that are in the contract, but it'll be kind of pulled out of the contract or not scope of work, but more of my legal stuff, and made into like a more user-friendly, palatable, make sure you read this reminder.
Yeah, I always find there are those disconnects between what's in the contract and then in reality, and you have to keep referring back to the contract. And you don't
Right, which feels like, I don't know, rough.
it can feel, I guess, less approachable to have to keep going back to a contract when it would be easy to just have a guide that you're like, here are the big things. Remember, I told you we're going to do X, Y, Z. This is the
Remember how shipping and
time.
receiving works, and a little bit more
Yeah.
of like, I don't know, it's just kind of like a marketing version of all of those points.
It's friendlier to do that instead of, if you could look at paragraph 4A, second bullet point in your
Yeah,
contract, like, ugh, I don't want to keep referring to that unless we're really in like a, hey, you're not paying your bills type of zone.
exactly. Like, so, and it's also if there's something that for some reason they didn't read the contract thoroughly, but we need to talk about, like use of photography or coming in to do photo shoots or
Yeah.
things like that, they can bring that up before I start planning things. So,
Yeah. It's a quick hit, like, reference guide to the contract without having to be as heavy.
yes, and it's a lot more easy to digest, pretty pictures, all that. And it's
Yeah, I
also like
like
kind of
that.
getting them excited, like onboarded to like this world, like
What happens?
you're in a different kind of mode when you're working with a designer.
Yeah, I kind
Um,
of wish I had one that said, just because you see me posting stuff on social media doesn't mean that I'm not doing something for your project, or doesn't mean that I need to be spending all my time on your project.
right. Oh, that reminds me, something I have in my questionnaire or my style kickoff questionnaire is about their preference for social media and
Okay.
whether, like, it asks like, do you mind if I share progress on your project? Um, and it's like, yeah, tag me, or I don't mind if you do, just keep me anonymous. And then there's a no, please don't.
No, don't sign me up for that.
So, and I have a note in there that says, I always respect your privacy and will never share anything that you're not aware of. Like, I'm not going to like reveal a presentation before the client has seen
Right,
it,
right, right. Look in their medicine cabinet.
or anything like that. Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure.
I mean,
So,
those are good. Let's keep things friendlies. Like, yeah. I mean, I feel like whenever I do talk about a project, I'm always a phase behind the where the client actually is. Like, we've
mm,
already revealed things or talked about things together, and we're already firmly in that direction before the world sees it.
yeah, it's more site visit stuff, I think, that I want them to be on board with because that's kind of real time
Yeah,
for me.
it would be cool to be able to share more and tag. That's an
Because if
interesting way
they're
to put
like,
it.
yeah, tag me, then I'm like, oh, well, they want me to, like, because some clients
They're into
are
it.
into it. Yeah, it's exciting for them and they kind of want to be part of it all. So
Yeah.
it's, yeah, and then it's not a awkward, I don't know. I guess I'm always trying to avoid like awkward things that aren't important. So
Right. Like, oh, I we don't really want that to happen, or why are you sharing that? And it's
or
just like,
take it
okay, but
down.
it's gonna yeah,
Yeah.
I'm not ready for people to see that. It's like, okay, well,
And especially back again, like when it's a couple, like the wife could say, yeah, tag me, but then not realize the husband's like, please don't
please don't do
do
that.
that.
I'm very private. I don't want people to see the inside of our house or whatever. Like,
Yeah. So it gets them, again, it gets everybody on the same page and they can just click a little button and not feel like it's a big deal, you know?
I like that. I like the welcome kit idea. I think that's going to be like a way to streamline a lot of those conversations without them feeling overwhelming. And
And
it's a
it's also
friendly
a
guide.
walkthrough. Like it's a good, like, I haven't done this, well, I haven't finished it yet, but it could be a good kickoff Zoom call where you walk through it, see if they have any questions, um, and kind of walk them through the process via this guide. Like it's like a presentation almost.
Yeah, I could use a little bit more of a warm and fuzzy from that transition from the great you signed a contract, and because I have right now the way I've set it up in Dubsado is like, awesome, we're going to get started. I'm so excited. Like, this is going to be great, and expect communication with me soon. And then it automatically waits a few days, and then it sends an email with an invitation to go to my Acuity and schedule their measurement appointment. And
That's nice.
I have a couple different types of measurement appointments based on how many rooms we're doing in their project. So it's either usually 1 to 2 rooms. I can be out in 1 to 2 hours. Like, and it kind of goes up from there to where I could legit be there a half a day, depending on how many spaces I have to measure for and how much remodeling we're doing. Like, there's more measuring on existing construction remodel than there is on new construction. Like,
Right.
so I that's sort of
How do
like
they know
my
what to sign up for?
based on
You
their
only give them
project
one link. So you update the link before it sends.
yeah, exactly. So the link specifies, which I don't mind going in to manually handle that because I still want to have my hands on that part of a project at this point. Like, it's not something I want to completely automate. And I also
Right.
don't want them to mistakenly schedule a really short appointment when it's long because they're like, well, I don't have that much time that day. It's like, well, this is how long it takes for me to do that.
Find the day that you have this amount of time. Yeah.
Right. And so I do like being like, this is your option. I could be done faster. I will work efficiently. You don't need to be with me every moment.
Please
That's
don't.
also, please don't be. But that's also when I take my before photos. So I let them know in that email, like, I will be taking before photos for reference. This doesn't mean you have to clean everything up. In fact, like, I kind of don't want you to because it makes for a really dramatic transformation.
Hmm.
But I do tell them, like, if there's anything identifying that you want to put away or do that before I come. Clean up a little before I come. I need to be able to get to everything, like, especially cabinetry and stuff that I want to measure walls. Like, don't have a bunch of stuff stacked, in your kitchen if I'm going to be measuring that space because I need access to everything. So it's like a paragraph. It's really quick. Most people get it, so
It's like a what to expect.
yeah. And then I get to my measurement appointment and I do that. And we haven't even started the project. And sometimes from there, I mean, I'm letting clients know, like, remember, we're like a month out from presentation or maybe longer, depending on how big it is.
Yeah, and where in the kind of schedule they've landed.
Right. Yeah. Because until I have measurements, nothing design wise is actually started. I don't actually start doing any work until the design questionnaire is filled out and I have measurements. I don't like to
It just
start
depends on
going
what
too
you
far
do.
down any paths until I have all that stuff. I just don't want to put in the work to have to go back again and go, oh shoot, I thought this big tub would fit there. And then I get my measurements and realize it's not gonna work. Like I'd really rather wait, don't start doing
Yeah.
design work that they're paying me for that was unnecessary. And it just kind of
Sometimes
goes
if
back.
I need to like kind of throw them a bone before I can physically do anything in person, I might do like it's basically the first couple pages of my design plan where it's like look and feel mood board. Like there's no space planning or specific items, but it's like inspirational images, kind of like moving forward on what I showed them in that questionnaire.
Yeah.
Um, Maybe colors I'm thinking of. It's more of like the lifestyle of it.
Energy,
Yeah,
feeling type of stuff. And I'm with that. I think that's a smart way to get like, hey, we've got
a little
ideas bubbling,
appetizer.
but
Yeah,
yeah, because for
it's an
me, after
amuse
I get
bouche, really.
the chef has sent out something special for you because
Ooh, I want to
dinner's
start
going to be
calling it
delayed.
that. I
This is
love
a
an amuse bouche. It's
this is
so
the
cute,
design amuse bouche because the chef is working on something so magical. It's going to take a while. Like
which is
if you
exactly what that is. They're like,
it
this
is.
shit's gonna take a while. So here's a tiny shot glass of carrot soup, like, or whatever
Yeah,
it
yeah,
is.
yeah. If you want the molten chocolate lava cake, you have to order that the moment you arrive to the restaurant because
Or the
otherwise
paella.
it won't. Yeah, yeah. If you want the paella, you needed to tell us before you got here when you left your house yesterday.
Oh, miss a good paella.
But I
Um,
like that idea of like, okay, here's a teaser because I do tell
and it's
clients
not
like you're not going to
undoing
see
any
any.
work. Like the measurements don't affect it at all. So like there is a
No.
little of getting on the same page and
But I like that because I do tell clients, I'm like, it's going to be a few weeks. You're not going to hear anything. Like, I'm going to check in with you each week because that's what I do for my projects on Fridays is like kind of give the assessment of where we're at and what's happening. But sometimes it really is just the email. Hey, we got measurements this week. It's going to be a little bit before all of that is like fully drafted and then space planned. And then I have to like go into the actual like schematic or programming phase of a project after
mm-hmm.
that, and that takes time, and I may be still working on other projects where
You
I'm
may be able
not
to buy
actually.
yourself some more time because you're probably already pinning and like
Oh
once
yeah.
I get a contract, I'm already like thinking about
Or,
what it's going to feel like. So,
totally. I think we've talked about that where it's hard to shut off the creative process, so you kind of want to have some of it out there bubbling because it motivates you to get the project moving. And I don't want clients to feel like, what did I just pay this retainer for if there's nothing that I'm going to see for like a month
but it
or.
also gives a round of feedback, like preliminary feedback. Because if it's just a mood and there's like, I don't know, a ton of like wood paneling or whatever, and
And they're
maybe
like,
that
oh
wasn't
God,
what you were
no.
intending to do, but they'll tell you what they didn't
Yeah.
like or something. Like you at least know, like you get a little bit of a bump to the direction that you will end up going.
Yeah. I like that idea. The schematic phase for me gets really granular. And I think that's just because like for me, I like the strategy involved in design. I like the planning. I like the picking like cost benefit analysis of certain design solutions. Like, yeah, we could add more storage, but then you're going to lose space to navigate this room. Or, yeah, we could put that cabinet there, but you're going to trade it off with, having less circulation space in the kitchen. And that's like the brainy part of design for me, which clients don't usually find that fascinating.
Not as fascinating as you do.
It's not sexy for clients. They don't,
Until it
they,
comes together, then they're like, oh my God, I'm so glad you thought of that.
yeah, like that was so smart to put that drawer over here because we literally use that all the time. And that's the one thing that we really are glad we did. And but the magic of designer behind the scenes is we're thinking about how you'll actually live in it, how you'll work in it, how you'll
Mm-hmm.
navigate it. Will it be efficient or not? Like, and that's where a lot of clients will come back and say like, oh, I really like this, but what if we did this? And then I'm like, actually, here, that's a really cool idea, but here's why it doesn't work for your space. Because if it's not in this spot, the only other two spots are here and here, and then it causes these problems. They're like, oh. So I like to really be thoughtful during the programming and schematic phases of projects
Yeah.
because I want them to know that I spent a lot of time landing on what I think is the best solution. And I can only do that by working through a couple ideas where I can really say, I think this is the one of the two best possible plans, or this is the best possible option,
And why? Yeah.
and why. Yeah, not just, oh, I plopped this in because
I
it
like
looks
it.
good. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's identifying wants, needs, nice to haves versus the need to haves, roughing out layouts on sketch paper. Do you still use trace paper at all? Do you ever
No.
use it?
No.
I use so
Like,
in school we use, it's called, I don't know what it's actually called anymore. It's basically a roll of trace paper, but when I was in school they
yeah.
would call it bum wad.
What?
Yes. Which is
What?
basically like junk paper, like really thin tracey paper that was just
Like
on a
it's toilet paper?
roll.
Like it's supposed to sound
I
like
don't
toilet paper?
kind of. I think that's where it came from. I really honestly
Ew.
don't know why. But
Did you call it
it's
that?
in school we did. Or then
Like,
people started changing it to trace, and then they have but I think bumwad
well, you're
paper was
like,
actually yellow.
pass me some bum wad.
Yeah, that's what it's called. I know this is gonna, I promise you guys, it's an actual lingo in architecture. Like, it's
All
a
right.
thin roll of
Okay.
trace paper. I promise
I
you
mean,
it's a
it's
real word.
probably like,
It's a real thing.
no,
It's
I believe, oh, it
usually
is
like
yellow.
yellowy. I'm telling you.
No,
I
I
mean,
see
and
it.
now
I
they
just
make it
Googled it.
in whites because they bleach the paper and but it's like a real thing. So
Hmm.
I don't
It's
use yellow. I
vellum. It
use,
was vellum.
yeah, I use like a white trace now for everything. But I like really doing that. Like, I will put down the general shape of a room. And I love doing this for remodels because I want to start over with just the shape of the room, assuming like if we're not going to add square footage, maybe. I like to pretend none of the windows are anywhere, whatever, maybe
Mm.
just the doorway into the room is the only thing I'm not going to touch. And then I just start messing with plans. And I might do like in a 4x4 or 5x5 type of size to scale. I will just like, I'll do dozens
Sketch.
sometimes. I'll just
I
be
kind of
like,
do
ooh,
that on
what
my
if it,
iPad.
and that's fun. That's like the same idea. Like, okay, let's just pretend like, ooh, cool, the stove here or the stove here,
Yeah.
the fridge over there. And sometimes something comes to me that I'm just like, oh my God, I never would have done this if I had kept that window in that spot. The biggest problem here became the window, not anything
Mm-hmm.
else. And sometimes clients can't see that, where they're like, a magical layout doesn't show up because they're looking at what already exists. And I like doing that during my programming phase of like, just throw out as many ideas. That's kind of what art school teaches you. Get through a bunch of really crappy ideas,
Yeah.
and one of them is going to end up working out the way you want it to.
Yeah. I mean, that's like a creative process technique that it's just that sketch, like graphic designers, like you just keep sketching, 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 getting it all out, and
And then you
something
look
will
back at
hit.
them and you look back and you go, wait, that one has something. No, 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 no. Trash, trash, trash. Ball
Mm-hmm.
up your bum wad and throw it away.
Flush your bum wad.
Flush your bum wad.
Oh God.
This is an explicit podcast. No, I'm just kidding. And but that's my process when I first start. We don't have to go totally down the creative pathway, but
Well, yeah, maybe we'll do that in another episode. But how do you handle budgeting with clients before?
I
Because there's
have
like, you kind of got to like start penciling something out before you've selected.
yeah, some of that is done in the initial like phone call and consultation where they've provided me some information about the level of what they're looking for, and then I will say like, okay, I'm hearing a kitchen that is in the X to Y range. Does that freak you out? And are you keeping your same appliances or adding new ones? And that kind of falls into that range for kitchens and bathrooms
Mm-hmm.
and what level of luxury. And then I start working out of that to develop a preliminary budget. So if they're like, oh yeah, we want the amazing robotic like bidet toilet combo, and we want a towel warmer, and we want a two-headed, double shower. And then I'm like, okay, here's some rough numbers that I can add in. And a lot of those are just materials numbers at that point. It's not the labor, it's not the construction, but I can start developing preliminary budgets of like, okay, materials for this one bathroom is going to be at least $10,000,
Yeah.
and then we bump up construction, costs on that for install and all of that work, and then I will sometimes refer back to clients early before we've really designed everything of sharing a preliminary budget and what some of those big ticket items look like, and say, are we on the right track? Are we on the wrong track? Like, what does
Are we
this mean to
valuing the
you?
same
And
things? Yeah.
yeah, and if they're like, oh, okay, yeah, the toilet is non-negotiable, have to have that. Can we cut
Mm-hmm.
back on costs per square foot on tile? Before I've even picked one, I just kind of go with
Right.
like hey, let's assume average cost per square foot is X dollars. You're going to need this much just for the shower, this much for the floor, this much for a backsplash, or whatever it
Well, yeah, because
is.
that totally informs your choices.
Yeah. And I think clients have really responded well to that because they like the trade off game. Great. We can keep that need to have toilet. We're going to have to go to the maybe nice to have or lower tile options now if we're going to make
Yeah.
up for that in the budget. And that for me, clients have been really responsive to that idea of trading off things. Like,
Yes.
this
High
piece of furniture
low.
is not worth that much to me. Let's go lower on that because we need to save that money for the sofa, or we need to save it for the built-ins, or whatever it might be.
Yeah, Jacob again we had a really good conversation about budget too that I think is a good reference to go back and listen to. So,
Yeah, episode 26 had a really good play on that, setting budget price points really up front.
and getting that like high level approval, he had a cool process.
Yeah, his was
Similar to
like
what you're
the
saying.
the good, better, best model was really cool.
Mm-hmm.
I think it applies a lot for furnishings and accessories and things like that. I
Yeah.
suppose you could work it out for a bathroom or a kitchen, but it just gets really complicated for those types of spaces.
Well, because people don't know square footage
Like,
pricing and
or like linear foot pricing for
yeah.
countertops. Like, that can get really really ambiguous very quickly. So I feel like they won't know like what's the difference.
And I feel like material costs are, yeah,
It
it's
ranges
different
so
than
much.
it ranges so much and people don't have any sense of them. So like people know the difference between a $500 sofa and a $10,000 sofa. Like they have a reference point for that and what it might mean. So
Yeah. Like they've
they,
sat on something at a big box furniture store like
Well,
Ashley or wherever.
well, or they just know kind of how to value that item because it's one item. So they're like, we let our kids eat spaghetti on the couch. Like
Oh no.
they're
Yeah,
yeah. So they maybe
totally.
aren't gonna like really value that right now. So I don't know.
Correct, correct. Yeah.
Um
I like that idea of like, okay, side chair, good, good. Okay, this is going
mhm.
to be elevated, still not luxury. Okay, here's what the best luxury or custom or bespoke is
And
going to
of
get for
course there's
you.
still tons of education and selling and what does it mean, like why is it luxury, what goes into the manufacturing process, why is it more, um like what makes it quality. Sometimes it's finish level and aesthetic, sometimes it's durability and
Yeah, I think
um,
that's a topic we know we're going to talk about more in future process parties
mm-hmm.
and future episodes to talk about product, how do you know, where do you get that knowledge? I mean, not
Yes,
everyone, even in design school, we spent a lot of time on textile and other materials, but we didn't really spend as
carpet.
much time on, yeah, like carpet, fabric, stuff like that. We did not spend as much time on furniture and
Mm-hmm.
construction methods. And I feel like a lot of my knowledge from that came from my internship.
HGTV.
Oh God, barf. No, definitely not. My internship, where she made nearly every piece of furniture custom, which is rare for a lot of designers,
Mm-hmm.
and
You see
showrooms.
how this sausage is made.
Right. Like that's a fascinating, like, you need to go check on that sofa and you're going to do the sit test. You're going to be the one, like, intern, you're going to go and say, is that the right cushion level? We're looking for this type of feel. And then you go to the upholsterer and take pictures and send it back and whatnot. And then kind of the same idea for talking to reps, talking to showrooms, going to trade and market events. So I know we're going to talk about that more later because that informs the process with clients.
Yes, completely. Um,
So at this point, we haven't even designed anything yet, necessarily.
no, I'm tired. I'm already over this
And
project.
do you
Just
bring in, before you've designed too much, do you bring in any like vendors or contractors or anybody else to kind of get a
um
general assessment of the job early on?
yeah, it depends on the project. Like right now I'm working on like kind of a kitchen living room refresh before the clients move in.
Okay.
So I did bring a few trades in at the same time. So like a painter, the contractor, well, he brought the painter and I tried to get the flooring guy in, but he had a misunderstanding. But yeah, like some of those big things, trying to get them all in at the same time as much as possible to get an idea of where we're standing before I design, but didn't totally work out that way this time, but ideally, yes.
Yeah. This is where I think it makes sense to have some of your go-to parties and or really, I mean, I tell my clients, even if they're contracting directly with parties like contractors and everybody, I ask to be copied or to have them send me copies when they get bids and estimates.
Mm-hmm.
One, because I want to make sure that what they're bidding on matches the actual scope of work. So when clients collect multiple bids, it's apples to apples.
Totally.
The second part of that is it helps me understand industry pricing, especially for types of things that maybe haven't been done before. Like I recently had a project that included a custom like reface of a fireplace with plaster, and I've seen that done other places. I have never done it. So I wanted to get an idea of what all was involved in that. So I saw the copy of the change order for that. And then I try to work out cost per square foot, cost per linear foot, those types of numbers, because I want a good frame of reference to be able to go back and share that with other clients when they're thinking about projects.
Yeah.
So even if I can't get a vendor like you could to come out, I could say, I think you're looking at a number like this.
Or like knowing when you're in the design process, like if it costs less to do that than it does to tile, then you can save budget by recommending something different.
Totally.
If that was true.
Yeah, I think that's like a trade-off where you say like, oh yeah, a full quartz slab backsplash is going to be more expensive than just tiling per square foot right there.
Mm-hmm.
So we should just go with a tile that we like that's moderately priced, because a full slab is going to cost more for that area. And then sometimes it's not true. Sometimes if it's a bigger area, the cost to just put a whole slab on there because it's so quick to
The
install
labor,
is cheaper than having to cut and put tile. And that's where you have to really build the knowledge. And I don't know, I do know some designers, they are intimately involved with contractors and vendors in the same way that I am, and they want to be copied on all the change orders, all the proposals, everything, because they're being tasked with helping to watch the client's budget. So the more you know, yes, the design doula.
Back to the
Your job
design
is
doula.
to, yeah, like remember you set, this was your budget and this was your contingency. So if you're going to eat that on that one, upgrade with the contractor, where are we cutting it elsewhere? And
yeah, and what are you gonna screw me out of with my furniture install or whatever?
that's a big one with clients, is like, remember, we've set aside X to furnish this room when it's done. That we're already contracted for that. Like it's already happening. I don't know.
So okay. So you get the trades in and then you're like ready to design. So I think that's when we move out of kickoff and into
create mode.
Prime time.
Prime time create mode. The magic sexy part comes after this. And that's a lot of territory, y'all. Like that's weeks and weeks of work before you've actually done a project. And I think it's good for clients to have a really accurate picture of what's going to happen, because otherwise they're not seeing a whole lot go on. Remember, they're still living in a house that nothing's been done to yet at this point.
Right.
Hopefully. And it can eat a lot of hours. So clients should be prepared that, at least in my case, most of my hours are spent in the earliest phases of projects.
Yeah, in the drawing and
yeah, and like all the way up through presentation is the most time-consuming part, and then we kind of have a lull until project management. Like once then it's another chunk of hours spent on the actual implementation phase. So you don't see a lot getting done, but you're spending a lot to get it done at this point.
Right. Well, and it's ensuring it's all done right. So
gosh, hopefully. They should be able to pay for this project by avoiding mistakes, in theory.
Right.
Like not ordering the wrong size of something, or not getting the wrong square footage, or calculating something wrong, or a contractor recommending a certain lighting arrangement that you're like, ew, gross.
Yeah,
and you have to change it all. So that's where I really am like, this is where we get it right, and this is why you hire me. So really position that value during this like initial kickoff phase of, we don't rush this process. We're going to spend a lot of time. There's going to be phone calls and meetings and maybe a Zoom or two. Like we're going to invest in this phase, so later it all works out the way you want it to.
Yeah. Think of all the money you've saved.
Easy peasy lemon squeezy.
All right. Well, that was a fun little party.
Little process party for y'all.
The next one, yeah, well, we won't make any promises about what the next one exactly is going to be, but
don't do that. Don't sign me up for cardio. Yeah.
We are calling it.
Until next time.
Stay hot, designers. Thanks for joining this meeting of the Hot Young Designers Club podcast.
If you liked what you heard, please subscribe and leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. Check out the show notes there for links to things we talked about today.
We're keeping the conversation going on Instagram, so don't forget to like, comment, and follow at Hot Young Designers Club.
You can find Rebecca on Instagram at Studio Plum.
And you can find Shaun at Renstead Interiors. That's WRENSTED. More money, more problems.
I got 99 problems, but a client ain't one.
Actually,
I got 99 problem clients.
got 99 problems and 98 are clients.